Alright, so in this video what we're going to do is show off a bit of the slot system that I've come up with to help you kind of tour around a page. So essentially what we're going to do is put down empty nodes and just have an object go from one node to the next. And let's not talk about it, let's just go ahead and do it. I'm going to duplicate the previous flyship page that we have. I'm going to get rid of most everything though. So I'm going to go over here to File, which is getting a little cut off. Go to Duplicate, and let's call this Tour System, because I've got a great image in here that we can use for touring the solar system. Alright, so let's just start shopping stuff out, and I'm going to get rid of that label. We can keep up, down, all that. We're not going to use the directional buttons that we had in one of our previous videos. Oops, deselected. There we go. And we don't need a boundary either. In fact, there's not going to be anything physics-based in this file. And let's move this label maybe over to here. We're going to call it info label. We'll just put in here a little dummy text, info. There we go. And we are going to keep in here our ship choice because the orientation of this image is going to go from left to right. Let's set the rotation over here to -90, and that way our ship is kind of always pointed in that direction. And let's get that image in there. So I'm going to set this at a Z position of -100, so it's tucked in the background. And I believe the image is, what did I call it? Let's go over here and look at it. Planets in line. Okay, so there you go. That was way off. Planets in line, and you can see it's a rather large image. Perfect for what I have in mind. All right, I'm gonna make that just a little bit bigger. I must have brought it in at just a tad under 1536, which is the height of our iPad scene. And let's move that over just a little bit. This info label, which you know, if you're kind of starting from scratch, you can just drag them out like that. I've just got the font settings set how I like. This let's actually attach to the camera, which is another thing that we don't actually have right now. So let's go ahead and drag that back out. Almost just as easy to make a new camera. We do need to be sure that we name it the camera. There we go. And with that in mind, our reference node of the menu items should also be a child of the camera. So let's just go over here to Parent, put in there the camera, grab our info label, the camera, and now what we'll do is we'll have our camera follow around our ship choice on the x-axis, which we'll set that up in just a moment, but you can get the idea just looking at that of what is going to be affixed to the camera. So, you know, if the ship goes over to here, all this stuff goes along with it, and contrary to what you're seeing in the scene editor, what it looks like is that the image is moving around and the camera items are all staying put. Okay, so let's set that up, and let's not forget, actually, where did I put that our little ship? It was somewhere around here. Well, let's select it over here, ship choice. There it is. All right, so because I'm going to initially set the camera to follow this ship choice, I don't want the ship to be somewhere over here because that would make it reveal that this is kind of the edge of the image. So I at least want to put it in the middle of the scene or somewhere over here, so that way when the camera starts tracking it, you know, we don't see the side of it. All right, so it could just be right here initially, about in the middle. And note the name of our scene, that is Tour System. So we're going to go over here and make a dictionary setting or a new page in here that is going to be called Tour Setting. And actually, I'm just going to go and copy one of the ones we've already got. Tour, what did I say? Setting, System. That's it. There it is. Tour System. Unfold that, and let's figure out what we're going to keep. As far as events go, we do want to have a set values dictionary in here. We're going to change it around a little bit, but we don't need to hide anything initially. As for the settings, we're going to set our initial camera to be the camera. So we're going to put in here initial camera, and that is just going to be the camera. And then let's go ahead and copy and paste that. We're going to put in here camera follows. And previously, we used camera follows. Now what we're going to do is say camera follows on X, and that just means that the camera is only going to follow our ship choice on the X axis. So again, it's only doing that horizontally, so we don't reveal the top or the bottom of the image in the background. So that does it for our settings. As for the elements, we're going to leave our ship choice in here. And remember, the only property that we had for this guy was just set texture from preference. So we're going to keep using whatever that saved value was for the ship texture that we set up back when we were picking a ship. And then let's get rid of up, down, left, right. The next button can still go on to whatever the next page is going to be. For now, let's just send it back to the cover. So I'm going to click it. And then we don't need to go and collect stars in this one because we're kind of, well, we're not giving people the option to just kind of free float around the board. But what we do want to do is make it so that anytime you click that background image, it's going to advance you to the next node that we need to set up. So that's a couple big things that we should create. Let's just go ahead and do it right now. So I'm going to call that image solar system. And I'm going to give it a touch event. I'm actually going to, I think touch up event is a little bit better on this one. So when people touch down, they have to actually touch back up again to do that. Get rid of that for right now. Let's go ahead and be sure that we name that in the scene. So go over here to our tour system. Let's go just select your image back here. Give it that same name of solar system. And then we're going to set the custom class to elements, because it's something that we want to interact with, and head back over to here. All right, so we got our solar system. Touch up event. What we're going to do is animate node to slot, and that's a very special property. It's going to use the slots that we set up in just a moment. What we do need to specify, though, is the object that we want to send to a slot. All right. And that's going to be our ship. So we put in there ship choice. That's the name of it right there. And then let's head back over here and drag in a few slots, which are just empty nodes. There it is. There's an empty one. So drag it on out here. And the way this works is you just have to name them slot 0 on upwards. You can have as many as 100 of them in here. So let's go and just copy out the next one. So what we'll do is, kind of send people to Earth initially. And where did I put that other slot? There it is. Oops. By the way, if you ever want to make sure that you don't select something, you can lock it. So just right click and lock it like that, and frees you up to kind of just select things a little bit easier. So after that, let's send people over here to the comments. How about that? So we'll then put in here slot 1, and this one would be slot 2. And I copied that one. This one will be slot 3. And you get the idea. So the code knows to basically send whatever the ship choice in this case to the next slot over, and it's a hard-coded value over just 1 second. So it's a relatively quick animation, but it'll work well for this. So it's going to go bump, bump, bump every time we press down on the solar system in the background. You can see how easy it would be to set up, entire tour of things. So each time you click down on it, you don't have to like re-specify. So the ship choice is now going to go to slot 1, now going to go to slot 2. It's just kind of, built in there. And then let's head back over here to the property list. That should actually be enough to get us started to test with. I do want to delete out some of our event listeners that we have, or maybe, well, let's just delete out one. We can leave one in there to modify later, and then these will just get ignored. So again, leave them in there. We'll play with them in just a moment. One event that we might want to do initially is to just send the ship to the first slot. So all you have to do then in that case is just over here under your events. Remember, these are the ones that are just stored in the root of the page. They just run right away. So that's going to send the ship to the first slot, which is, again, we start numbering at 0, so slot 0. Okay, let's give it a shot. And for this example, not this one right now, but in just a moment, I want to publish this, or I want you to see it on my iPhone, because I'm going to put in some cool particle effects over here that I just don't trust the simulator to run accurately. So you can see that this is actually recorded from my phone, and the little ship is moving around, and you can even kind of tap a little bit quicker than the 1 second it takes to get around, and you would notice that you can see it actually even stopped going in about like all the way up and just kind of cancel that out to go to the next one. So it's kind of nice that people can do that. And yeah, let's put in some very cool particle effects, and I'll show you guys how to change text based on the kind of where you're at. So go back over here to your scene file, and would you believe that there's a perfect particle system already created? It's called Fire. And oops, leave that as is. What I want to do is just drag it out from here. There we go. Okay, and if you want, you could call this Fire. You don't really have to, but if you hit the animate button, you can get an idea of what it's going to look like. What we should do is probably increase it a bit. I'm going to set the scale up to 3 and 3, and you'll notice that makes quite a difference, right? And then that would look good toward the top. What you can do, duplicate this a few times and start rotating it like so. Let's do one more down here, so you get the idea of what that would look like. And then it looks a little weird not having anything in the middle. So let's set this, wait, it should be about, yeah. So let's set this one up to 5 on the scale. There we go. And we'll do that 2 more times. Okay, and because the scene is gonna, well, yeah, a lot of the transition, just the 2 seconds it takes to advance from one scene to the next, that's going to cover up that kind of initial part that you see right here where it basically flames up. So I don't think anyone's going to see that, and it is just going to add a really cool effect to our solar system. So let's look at that one more time. I'm going to have to stop again and just record my phone. Okay, let's hit play on this, and I did move slot 0 to more about there, just so we can see a bit more of the that nice bright sun. But yeah, and actually what you're seeing is an even kind of reduced screen capture rate, because I record these videos a little bit less than ideal, and the actual phone is running at that 60 frames per second. So now let's go ahead and change the text around based on where we are at in the solar system. So to do that, and let's kind of pretty things up a little bit, fold everything in. We're going to start to basically keep track via just a simple variable or value. We're going to call it counter. So let's go ahead and get rid of the set values that we had in here previously. The last one you can leave in though. And what we want to do is just name this counter. I mean, you can name it anything you want, but I'm going to set the value to 0 as soon as the page loads up, and then we're going to increment that every time you press down on the solar system. So unfold your solar system, go to your touch up event, and just add a new thing to occur inside of here, which is going to be increment 1. And if you remember from the previous lessons, you can actually subtract using this as well by putting in here -1, 2, 3, and that's going to subtract 3 on up to 10. After that point, you'd want to add via the add to values property, but this will work for now. And so yep, increment 1, all we have to do is put in here the value that we want to increment. There's our counter, and then fold this guy up. What we're going to do is work with our label, which I believe we called info label. It'd be fun to add 2 lines of text. So let's go ahead and we'll get this one set up, and then we'll duplicate it. So what we're going to put in here is text with a saved value, and make that just be info text. And what we're going to do is change that value based on the counter. Okay, and we'll do the same thing for a second label. So just go over here and copy paste that, call that info label 2, and the text with save value, we'll just make that info text 2. So essentially we will have variables called info text and info text 2. Let's go and set up the second line of text though, and I'm just going to copy this. This would be kind of floating down here for more details, like let's say that says Earth, and then we'll put in here, you know, some bit of information about the planet Earth. Okay, and I'll just oh, I do need to be sure that says info label 2 and set that to just dummy text. All right, so fold that up, our event listener now. Let's make this a little bit more appropriate for the text. Let's just say, let's call it Earth. How about that? Meet all conditions in group we don't need, so let's get rid of it. Listen for, that was previously in there for listen for greater than. We're just going to listen for an exact value now. We don't need to listen for an interaction. So let's unfold both of these. And what we're listening for is our counter to equal 0, which of course it is right away. So this is going to be what gets set right away. And what we're going to do is set values as our event. So go ahead and get rid of your info page. And if you want to just copy this, put it down here. In this case, what we're doing is we're setting that info text to a string value of whatever we want. So this might be Earth, and then we'll do the same thing for info text 2. You are currently home for now. How about that? And let me just kind of try to reiterate all this. So again, we've got our info labels here. They're always going to update anytime there's a change to a saved value. So again, text with save value, info text, there it is, Earth. And you know, as soon as our counter equals 0, these are going to get set. And then we could copy this, call it comets, and we're listening for our counter equaling 1 now. And then that'll say comets. Or maybe these are meteors. Who knows? All right, and so on for our other things out there. One thing we should consider doing though is resetting basically our counter if it gets too high. So what we could do is call one of our event listeners reset counter, and what we might do is listen for it equaling, let's say 4, okay, and then for our set values we're just going to take our counter, make that equal to 0 again. Now the way the event listeners work is by default they turn themselves off once, you know, there's mission has been accomplished. Okay, once they've listened for their thing, it's been satisfied, they shut off. But you do have another property in here that you can add. It's called always listen, and this is a Boolean variable. It's by default set to no, but you can set that to yes, and of course we'd want to copy that down here and actually do it for this one as well. So that way people can loop around, as I'm sure as you noticed earlier when I demonstrated moving around from slot to slot, if it gets to us, you know, if it gets past the, or gets to the last slot, essentially, if you press again, it's going to go back to 0, which is the same thing we're essentially doing here with our event listeners. So let me pause the video. What I'm going to do is I'll put in some information for the other 2 slots that we have in there, the Moon and Mars, and then we'll watch it one more time with all the fun effects in there. Okay, so let's look at the somewhat finished effect. Of course I got to add in more planets and things like that, but that's easy. And once you hit that last slot, it resets. There you go, back around again. So that's it's a pretty neat way, I think, to you know, set up a tour for any sort of graphic and kind of move your way around. And you know, who knows, that could even be something that you consider for maybe like a board game or something like that, a very simple board game where a piece just, you know, jumps from kind of slot to slot. and you know, snakes around the page or something. So there you have it. And you know what, if you want to try to kind of look at everything at once, we didn't really have that much stuff. Let's go ahead and just fold down all the notable things that we included here. See how many we can get into view. Yeah, that's about all of them. Okay, I will see you in the next video.